Welcome to this month's chapter. Looks like we have several new faces. If this is your first time here, raise your hand. First time. 2, 3, 3. You've been here before. Everybody follow the chapter. Everybody knows how to follow the chapter. Good. Tonight we're going to have Patric Garmeson for the Ugly Fishing In talk to us about his fishing here lately. He's been doing pretty good on some redfish, so maybe he'll tell us some spots. Not. But this month we just got back from Delacroix, Louisiana. Me, Bob, and Brian. I went down there for 4 days. Had some really good trips on redfish. Redfish was good. I hung one speckled trout. It didn't make it to the boat, but they just hadn't moved in yet. But seeing a lot more activity in the mornings coming across the causeway, so it's got to be getting better. I hadn't fished it in a couple of weeks, so I hadn't tried it out. But I'm got a nosebleed, so I'm a little paranoid about it running, so please excuse me for that. But other than that, it was some good trips. I caught a 10-spot red, led for about 2 days for the yearly tournament, and got knocked out by a guy that caught one. Must have had 30 spots on it. Did you get him on the page?
Yeah.
Get him in the thing. So, as you'll know, we're running a year-long, ends in December. Reds with the most spots gonna win.
What tournaments? I mean, are they born with that many spots, or they gradually get them for some reason?
You have to ask them. And you know, it's kind of intrigued me when you see these ones with, you know, they call them a leopard spot, and they'll have 100 spots. It looks more like a speckled trout than a redfish. I told Ryan and them I was going to start calling them like a elk or something. We just start calling them 5 by 5, 5 by 6. Put some fun into it. So, but that was 5. I think is the most I've ever caught. 5 on 5 is the most I've ever caught. So it's kind of I don't know. For me, it's
30's gonna be hard to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even count them. I don't know if they did. Did you? It was just black spots down the side. And I was like, you know, I was a good guy. I called him. I said, hey, you need to put it on the page and enter it into the tournament. So, and Colton had led for 9 months, 7 months. Started with
9 on 9.
Mark started, I think. Did you start?
Yeah.
Mark started, and Colton knocked him out with a 9 spot, and then got him with a 10 spot. And now it's going to be hard to beat that 30. So, but he was down here somewhere. He was in Alabama, because he's from Coleman or somewhere up in that area. But and everybody's seen on the chapter where they're having that 30-inch challenge going on with SaltStrong. I guess the sales of the rulers are way down, so it has to be measured with one of their rulers. So I told them that's a great marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I ordered one. Brian ordered one. I don't know who else ordered one, but I figured I was going to Louisiana. The chances of catching a 30-inch was really good.
Yeah.
It was worth the $30 for it. Yeah. Hey, bud, come on up.
So does that tournament apply to the whole Gulf Coast?
Yeah, every member of SaltStrong gets that. Got to be measured on the bump board. But the funny thing is, I've caught 32s, 33s here, no problem. Go to Louisiana thinking I'm gonna, everything I catch can get 30 plus.
Yeah.
Of course, they felt like it because they just
Tough.
wreck you. You know, I've had them in the motors, trolling motor up, under the boat. I guess that's the thrill of it, is you just never catch anything that bites, other than amberjack. But, yeah, they pretty detrimental. So, and I caught 90% of mine on a crankbait. So I started with my redfish magic, which is my only lure I just about fish with. But, switched over to the crankbait, and once I've done that, I just stayed with the crankbait the whole time. So. But anybody got any questions, comments, concerns, topics?
This may be old news for everybody else, but tried to go into Captain Patric and launch there. That's closed for 2 years.
Yeah, they're renovating the whole thing.
Everybody else knew, I didn't.
So we post that on the chapter. Brian keeps us updated on it, so that tells me you hadn't been on the chapter there much. But, yeah, so Brian does a good job of keeping up with the boat ramps and launches when they're closed and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's gonna be spectacular when they get through with it. It's gonna have a fish market and all kind of.
They made Fish River look really nice. The boat launch down there, it's real nice.
Yeah. So I give Brian a hard time because I'm like, that's Mobile County. Mobile ain't got no money, they don't.
Yeah.
And then they bust out with that one,
Yeah.
so good, so.
The one on County Road 6 is really nice.
Yeah, he was there for the grand opening of that one, so. But, let's get it started. Everybody, I'd like to welcome Patric Garmeson with Ugly Fishing. He's gonna be our speaker tonight. Had him here once or twice already, but he's got so much intel and such a great guy. Thanks. Patric Garmeson, everybody.
All right, hey y'all, thanks for coming out tonight. See, some of y'all I saw at the ACFA meeting a couple weeks ago. I'm going to kind of go similar pattern to what I did there, but I've got some things that we're going to lead into as far as the trends, as far as the fishing that I've seen. Actually, a lot of changes since that ACFA meeting. The first thing I wanted to talk about was who actually brought the boat, who was actually fishing. Who's out there with the boat?
That's mine.
Did you go?
No, I'm actually heading home.
Oh,
So I live in Clanton.
okay.
So I'm heading home after this.
Didn't even go fishing today. So that is actually why I'm a little bit late. I had a lady from she's from Alaska. She's in town and she's fished with me the last couple of years. I had her a couple days ago. Had her again today. It was right at 3:30. I was planning on being back, and she had booked me for a 10-hour trip, and we were just about to head back, and I was like, well, there's look like a slick right there. Just make one last cast, and then for the next hour, we caught speckled trout before we could come in. Anyway,
okay.
so
That's okay.
so that ended the day really well, and the fish that we found, it was very specific fish slicks where where that oil from the fish, from the bait fish or whatever, comes up and hits the surface and then starts spreading out larger and larger. We were actually watching the slicks. They were popping. We were throwing. Basically, we just grabbed every lure and popping cork that we had, and it didn't matter. So, one advice right now is the first cast I think she made was with a live shrimp. She throws it out there, it hits the water, gets bit. She loses the fish. Then she got to reel it all the way back in, bait it up, throw it back out. Well, I didn't let her do that. I took it out of her hands and gave her a grub and just threw it in there, and she started catching fish. So anyway, that's a little bit about what happened today. But today I want to talk to y'all a little bit about some of the things that I've learned over the years as being a fishing guide. The first thing is bananas. How many of y'all do not like bananas on your boat? Is it? Most people are either don't bother you or you can't bring them anywhere near my boat. Well, I know a lot of fishing guides that are like that. That'll they will literally search their customers' bags and coolers and everything. Take anything banana boats, sunscreen, the bananas, and they throw it all away. Well, anyway, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter. You can have a good day with bananas on the boat, and you can have a bad day with bananas on the boat. So if you like a banana, take a banana on the boat. No big deal. Let's see. One of the things that I've kind of modified over the years as far as what I've, as far as tools on the boat and apparel, one of the things that's come along over the last few years and really has become common along, he's got one on, is these hooded shirts. A hooded shirt is something that I have it is completely part of my wardrobe as far as on the boat every day from, I don't probably do it much in the winter time because I'll probably have a hooded sweatshirt on, but like these lightweight performance shirts with hoods on them, it's a game changer as far as just being able to flip it up, keep the sun off the back of your neck, and it is almost the instant cooling effect. So what I want to, with not only the hooded shirts, but just comfortable pants, shorts, whatever you're going to wear, I have modified it into going full cover up. I'll wear sun gloves, long sleeve shirts, the hood, long pants, and some type of shoes to keep my feet dry. And doing it each and every day, all of those things are vitally important. I go to the dermatologist every week, or not every week, every year, and she continues to tell me that I'm doing a good job and not burning skin cancers off of me. So, anyway, let's see. As far as taking people fishing, the number one thing, especially if y'all have kids, family members, people come in from out of town, I know y'all want to show them the best speckled trout bite of your life. You want to take them red fishing, whatever. But at the end of the day, if people that don't get to experience it a lot, the species is far less important than it is to bend a rod. And I have a lot of customers that they may tell me that they want to go speckled trout fishing, and then we go and we maybe catch a few, and then we catch a redfish, and that gets them excited, and then they maybe catch a sheephead as a bycatch using live shrimp, and all of a sudden they're more excited about that. That's a unique fish. And really what I'm telling you is if you're going out there, especially with kids and wives or any people that aren't out there like with a mindset of trying to take and just catch one particular type of fish, really go out there and enjoy and embrace all of those different fish out there. I'd say this as far as targeting species, for those of y'all that like to actually go out and have kind of a mission, it was something that really we didn't do a lot as a kid, even up until probably my mid to early 20s. Redfish was not a particular fish species that we caught a lot of. All in this area, it was more of a bycatch. If someone went and caught their 3-man limit, and I don't know when it changed, but at one point you could keep a rat red and 2 slot reds as your creel, and then it went to no rat red, then it had to be 2 slot reds, and you could keep one over. Anyway, that was always a challenge. Like for us, is going red fishing. If we went out and caught a limit of redfish, it was a heck of a redfish bite for us. But anyway, I feel like things have changed in our environment. There was a restocking effort. A little bit more about the redfish and fishery that we have here. We have a gajillion piers up and down east and west side of Mobile Bay. There are redfish on those docks 12 months a year. Now, they're not on every dock every day, but 12 months a year you can catch redfish on docks. 12 months a year you can catch redfish in the Delta, Dog River, Fowl River. So that's just something to think about. A lot of people get hung up on trying to catch speckled trout. I love speckled trout, but I also hate them whenever they don't want to bite. When I'm struggling to catch them, I'd like to find something that's going to bend our rod. So anyway, that's something for y'all to consider as far as expanding your knowledge. If you're already a good redfish fisherman, then I'd encourage you to try different things, or maybe take somebody that doesn't know and teach them a little bit. Fishing reports. Talked to a fishing guide, buddy of mine, he just whacked them. It's probably old news, and those fish have moved on. So a lot of times fishing reports can be helpful in giving you some trends and giving you an area, you know, maybe if you get a fishing report, instead of just saying, hey man, where'd you catch them? You know, maybe ask a few more details there to get you kind of in the idea of how you would try to execute it the next day if you were going out the next day. Let's see. Another thing, I don't know, you hear it a lot in the fishing world that people talk about fish following the bait. And I'm a believer that there's a little bit more of a bait fish do one thing, shrimp do one thing, predator fish do another, and those intersections is when we find where we find them feeding. So you don't see this giant school or this giant mass of shrimp that just moves up the river, out the river, into the bay, whatever, and every speckled trout is following. That's just not the case. I mean, and you can find shrimp with no fish at all around them. I mean, you can throw a cast net on them and catch all the shrimp you want in the net, and there's no fish feeding on them. You know, so if that was the case, that's just my opinion. I know you hear that forever you hear tales about fish following bait, and I just don't think it. You know, and I think a good analogy is we're not always sitting there. We're not always sitting in the kitchen eating. You know, I mean, we're going to have meals, and then we're not going to have meals, and that's just. I mean, the fish are doing the same thing. They got to eat. They have to move. They have to eat. They have to move. And those agendas, I'm not sure about. You know, there's a lot of movements of fish that it just baffles me. I do a lot of fish tagging. You'll tag a 16-inch redfish in Dog River, and 9 months later, it's recaptured in Pensacola at 19 inches. Then you tag a 17-inch redfish in Dog River, and it's recaptured 4 years later in the same spot. Is the thing going to Pensacola and coming back? I don't. There's a lot of fish movements that are very interesting, and I assure you we're a long ways from really patterning that stuff out. One thing I have seen that has been very interesting, talking about the tagging, is I have seen redfish in the slot and in the slot somewhere tagged on the east side of Mobile Bay, that when they're recaptured in Florida or Orange Beach. But anyway, it seems like they move out, and then when they're recaptured to the east, they're always over slot. And then the fish that we tag that are over slot in Alabama, a lot of them are recaptured in Mississippi and Louisiana. Pretty interesting. I mean, I've seen other variations of that trend, but that is one thing I have seen that has been pretty cool to see. The speckled trout we're catching in the Delta are the same speckled trout we're catching at Dolphin Island and Fort Morgan. So when we're catching them in the Delta this fall and winter, those fish are the same fish that are end up down there at the south end of the bay. So that is for sure. I have seen that consistently in tagging data. Any questions so far? We're gonna kind of get y'all going on what I'm seeing as far as trends. So as far as what I wanted to ask one other question. How many of y'all are actually using like the SaltStrong app? There's like the fishing locations and stuff like that. How effective are y'all seeing like the actual the spot? Is it smart spots or whatever?
Yeah.
I'm curious what y'all have seen, but I know a lot of what I have looked at, and just I use it as a tool occasionally, and there's a lot of stuff that I see that's like in like this much water or less. And I was just curious how a lot of that data got in there that these areas that are probably floatable in a boat.
Kayaks.
I mean, some of it's like,
Can't even get past.
some of it's not even kayak.
A
fishing.
mud flat.
Yeah. Yes, anyway, I was just curious what y'all
Yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah, depends on how tight it is. I mean, just because it's red don't mean it's perfect.
Oh, no,
You know.
no, and like I said, it's not something I'm using on a daily, but it is something that I have referenced before, or maybe I'm looking back on a trip where we had a really good day, and maybe in an area that I didn't necessarily expect to do extremely well, and then I look on there and sometimes it's saying that it was a great day to be at that area,
Yeah.
so, would y'all have?
I'm probably the biggest novice in here of anybody, but speaking
Okay.
of the hot spots, which really was more geared probably towards him, this question is, maybe once a quarter, or a season or whatever, we could pull up the app
Yeah.
and say, okay, this is a red spot or a yellow spot, and say, okay, this is why this is yellow, this is why this is red.
Yeah.
And kind of explain, as the seasons change, maybe they say 3 or 4 times a year, pull up, I mean, the few times I've been here, I don't really think we've looked at the maps
All right.
in the app, is maybe pull up the app, and what it says the hot spot, and I'm not so sure I'm a big believer in the spots, but.
Yeah.
But maybe we could kind of analyze some of those for the people that are kind of more ignorant than the rest, is kind of explain why they say that's a good spot.
Absolutely.
You know, what everybody else thinks, but it might help me anyway.
I know for me, I use it as kind of a high level guide if I'm thinking about going in an area of just looking, because it takes in the tides, and a lot of times those tides overlap in different areas, and I think that's where some of the I don't think they have a way to diffuse that, and so I think data wise, I think there's some overlap there that will cause things to be yellow when they're, like you said, when it's 2 inches or when it's not the
Yeah,
right.
it's a total mud flap and blowing north wind for 20 miles.
Everything's south of here, you can't even walk in ankle deep, always stays
Yellow. Yeah.
red.
Yeah, I was just curious.
That was my first question when I paid for the app. Because I come from Mobile, in Baldwin County, drive back across the bay, fished my whole life. And, looking at the app and it's showing red, and I'm like, it's dirt.
Yeah.
So I went on the app and I asked the question, and then I started watching some of their videos some more. And of course, they said that you have to take into consideration wind, and I'm like, I get that. But even on high tide, it's knee-deep water at best. And I think from watching their videos and listening to them talk, they do a lot of their analysis by satellite imagery. And, I think they're based down around the Tampa area where they see a lot more of the grass, and where they're seeing mud here, or darker mud, they may be thinking it's grass or something.
And it does grow grass in a lot of those areas.
They need to look at the contours.
Yeah.
So redfish will bite, putting high water, they'll bite in the fluid water.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those spots that are on that map, especially in the Mississippi Sound area, you can barely get your boat in there and catch redfish every time you go in there.
Yeah.
Well, all those guys down there primarily fishing kayaks. So that's a lot of their perspective.
And I think some of it has to do with fishing reports too, because if you look at areas like the Eastern Shore, like you were saying, there's piers everywhere. Every pier is lit up. Every public access point is lit up as a hot, whether it's a yellow or a red or a pink. Every spot that seems publicly accessible is lit up.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people are fishing there, people are making reports that fish are being caught there. I've tried to fish some of the zones and I've done okay. And then this past weekend, I fished in no man's land where I should have 10% of the fish. And it took me 4 hours to find that 10%, but I found them in the last hour.
The colors are based off of like the solar table. They're based off of the winds, tides, currents, and time of year, and wind and weather and all that kind of stuff. They've got algorithms built. It's not a one size fits all, and I think that's where the problem comes in is a little different.
They actually tell you to just take an area and use it in other areas, like if this creek mouth is lit up, it may not necessarily be this creek mouth, but use this creek mouth on the flat, when the wind's protected, it still takes 90% of
it's easier to find stuff though. I mean, cause you can know where the current's there and stuff like that. Before this happened, you had to go through a whole lot of stuff to get what you wanted out of it.
Well,
It makes it a hell of a lot easier.
It does teach you, like in Louisiana this week, the last 2 days, I just fished points that were on main alleys.
Yeah.
And everywhere I went, I caught fish. And, or either there was a structure that I always caught fish on. Every day I could go back there and catch a fish. But, you know,
And none of it was hardly lit up where we fish, and
yeah, none of it was lit up.
Yeah.
Hey,
Anyway.
it's a process.
I was just curious. Another thing about the SaltStrong, I don't listen to the podcast all the time, but I did listen to one the other day. They were talking about the least important piece of equipment would be a fish finder, and I was like,
wait a minute.
there's no way, man. I use mine so much, blah, blah, blah. But then when I actually listened to it, digging into it, and what they started talking about, like all the reasons why it wasn't important, it's like, I mean, so if you haven't listened to that podcast and you were trying to philosophies that they're going on as to why like fish finding equipment wasn't as important, I don't disagree with that, because there's a lot that you can do. There's 10 times more that you can do with a really good quality trolling motor than there is with fish finder, because there are a lot of times where if you're in 6 feet of water or shallower, it really doesn't matter what especially if you're using a fixed transducer. All right, as far as trends that I'm seeing right now, a couple weeks ago I was at the ACFA meeting. All the speckled trout, a lot of the redfish, everything that I was seeing seemed to be following like main channels into the rivers. Very little activity on the edges, very little activity on the flats leading into these areas. And since then, we got a little cool snap, and all of these flats are starting to light up with fish. There's still some movements of speckled trout and redfish in these deeper channels. They're not on the bottom. They're kind of moving and they're kind of feeding through the water column. But a lot of the flats, a lot of the little bays, a lot of areas where fish generally are going to get into the fall, they're really starting to show up in those areas, and I really saw that happen. I think we just come off the nip tide back in last weekend. Monday, we barely had any tidal movement, but everything was just lights out good, shallow water. I mean, it was easy to find fish. There were slicks. You would see, all you kind of had to do was look for a few mullet to jump, slow down, and look for a slick to pop up, and you were on some fish. Mostly speckled trout. There may have been some redfish in there, some white trout. Sometimes the sail cats will make those slicks, and you can kind of still get through the sail cats and still find some speckled trout and white trout mixed in there. But that really changed drastically after this last nip tide, and when those tides started speeding up. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a fish slick? Do y'all? Yeah. I mean, y'all seen them? You understand? Like, so the one thing that you definitely have to know is you want to try to figure out where it originated from. I mean, if it's the size of this room, it's going to be very difficult. If it's the size of a truck bed, you're a lot closer to where it originated. You need to identify that, stay way away from it, 2 or 3 casts away from it, and figure out which way your current is going, which way your wind is going, and figure out where that, because often I'll point out a slick to a customer, and they're like, they think that's the target, right? It's drifting by, and they're just steadily trying to cast into that slick spot, when the fish that created that slick are back upstream, up current, upwind, or whatever. So understanding that and approaching that as quietly as you can possibly approach it, because in most cases those slicks are popping up in shallower water areas. Sometimes they'll pop up in 10 or 12 feet of water, and that's where you're gonna find them where they're this big when they hit the surface already. But the shallower the water, the smaller they're gonna pop up and then start spreading out. But if you try to approach those things as stealthily as you can often slide in there way upwind, way up current, and drift down to them and start catching them. If you have a way to stop the boat, it's ideal to try to stop that boat way before you ever get that bite. And try to be just trying to ease in there, whether it's using power poles or some sort of spike anchor or the trolling motor. If you have a trolling motor and you just mash that anchor button, that thing's gonna spin around, your boat's moving this way, it's gonna spin around, it's gonna gas it, it's gonna try to get back to that spot. So whenever you're drifting along and you hit the anchor button here, and you drifted to this point, it's trying to get back to here, right? So when it does, it's gonna spin, it's gonna be zooming back, and a lot of them are gonna run at a pretty high RPM, so that anything that was anything within casting range is now probably about 2 casts away from you, and then you gotta start the process all over again. So that's something that's really important when moving into these areas. Kayakers, I think that a kayaker's problem is going to be to try to go ahead and spike himself down early enough before, especially if you're in a breezy or current situation, you end up drifting through there really quick. I don't kayak fish a lot, but I know the couple times I have, the first thing I want to do whenever I get a bite is I want to hit my power pole button and drop my power poles, and I didn't have any power poles on this particular kayak. Next thing I know, I'm hooked up, and the fish is pulling me that way, and it's like, well, I'm screwed. You know, I was planning on trying to catch 20 fish out of this school, and I got 1. You know, just because I drifted through it. So if you are a kayak angler, if you have a way to stop yourself in those instances, you're going to catch more fish with that. Any questions so far?
What's your approach on a slick? Do you try to come in from?
Try to get way upwind, way up current.
Cast with the wind toward it?
Try to cast, yeah, always trying to cast with the wind. If you approach it from downwind, down current, especially, I mean, if you don't have any kind of wind, it's not as critical. But for instance, today I had a situation where I was trying to get my customer to cast at a particular target, like there was a piece of structure there, and I had her cast into it, and it would cast, and the current was pushing it back to her, and she was reeling and trying to pick up the slack, and before she even popped the cork even one time, hell, it was 20 feet back away, you know. So anytime you can do it with the current and with the wind, it's at your advantage.
What if you have opposing wind and current? What's your first choice?
Wind. I'm gonna try to go to where I don't have, because if you have a wind that when you cast and you throw it and you're trying to hit that wall and it lands halfway, you're doing half of what you need to be doing. The further you can get the cast away, especially when you're talking about schooling fish, the better and the more fish you're gonna be able to catch. And in that case, then I would always err on the side of current. I mean, always err on the side of wind, using the wind to my advantage and not trying to fight it, because it's a way harder fight than it is to actually use it to your advantage. So the other thing so we're just talking about the fish a lot of fish were moving in the channels, moving up on these flats. A lot of these flats where fish are starting to locate now, I don't care what system you're in. You may still be finding fish that are out in the bay that are moving up into more shallower water now. Those fish are generally going to stay there through the next couple of, probably first cold snap, second cold snap, and then after that, then you'll start seeing some more movements out of these fish where you're going to have to start tracking them down. But one thing I will say is, kind of going back to what I started with the things I've learned as a fishing guide, is fish tend to kind of stay in a particular area for about one tide cycle. So like you get a neap tide and you find a group of fish that's in a particular area. by the time you get to that next neap tide, those fish are generally gone, doing something else, doing a different area. So I've had people tell me like, man, we got them real good over here 2 weeks ago. I'm like, 2 weeks is a long time. I mean, I go every day, and there's changes every single day. You could catch 150 in one spot and go back the next day and catch 10.
You can go upriver and not catch nothing on your way back. 2 hours later, you can be catching fish.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, there's some movements there. As far as what we're catching them on right now, 2 things that I have identified. We got a couple of, I don't know, do y'all do like raffles and stuff? I brought some hats and popping corks and stuff. Do any of y'all use like the Slick Lure products?
Yes.
So I use these Slick Juniors a lot. Rig these on a jig head, 1/8 ounce or 1/16 ounce under a popping cork. Really good. Put it on an 1/8 ounce to even upwards of a 3/8 ounce jig head and use it as a casting lure. This was something I found very interesting the other day. We were in an area, we had some slicks popping up. We drifted through there. One guy was throwing a shrimp imitation, which we'll use these voodoo shrimp a lot. This little small one is really good. I actually started using the Z-Man Prawn Star. That thing is money. But anyway, we were using
all scented?
No. Well, the Prawn Star may have some scent. Slick Lure is not. Anyway, we're drifting through here. Slick's popping up. Pogies are flipping. I haven't seen any kind of shrimp activity. And the guy that's throwing the Slick Junior, his cork is burying every cast. It's burying. The guy with the shrimp, I'm like, just, they're trout. They're over here, they're feeding on anything, right? Throw over there, throw with the shrimp, live shrimp. We tried everything shrimp we had on the boat, and the Slick Lure, the Slick Junior, was just caught every fish. And then we switched over. I switched over to like a paddle tail. This is a Rage Swimmer by Strike King. Anyway, I think any particular paddle tail would have worked in this situation. But I tested. I just threw a paddle tail out there and just swam it back, and they annihilated it. So the one thing I got out of that was that those fish were exclusively feeding on pogies, and there weren't any shrimp in that area. So this is not a sales pitch for Slick. I do like the lure, but it is it has proven to me that in a situation where they could be feeding on shrimp, it works. They could be feeding on bait fish, it works too. So if you are just dead set on loving on a shrimp, then that's fine. But I suggest maybe having something like that handy. Even just having it on a casting rig, just throw it out and just check. Just throw it out and swim it in, and they'll let you know if that's what they're interested in. So that's really where I'm at on speckled trout. I haven't been doing a lot in the way of trying to go and target any big ones lately. Like what I've been trying to do mostly is just catch numbers, bend the rod, make the cork go down, get some bites. That lady from Alaska, I handed her a swim bait, one of them paddle tails, and she was like, "Oh, I know why you like this thing now. This is so much fun. You can feel the bite." So, and this is a great time of the year to do that. If you've got somebody that's like just having a real tough time trying to understand how to use a lure, this is a great time to at least build a little confidence. Go out there, throw it, reel it in, and figure out what that bite feels like, what to do afterwards, setting the hook, and getting them in. A lot of times people don't, they feel the bite, keep reeling until the rod loads up, and then that's what they think is actually what you're supposed to do, but if you're, if you wanna try to teach them how to do it, let them know that they're feeling that bite first and then setting that hook. Because a lot of times if you just keep reeling, they're gonna come off, especially a trout. Speaking of teaching somebody how to use a lure, one thing I've been seeing over the years since I've been guiding is I hand a lure to somebody and it's like, hey y'all, you understand how to use something like this? Oh yeah, I bass fish, I walleye fish, whatever. And then I see them moving their rod like this, you know? They're all over the place. And I'm like, hey, what you doing there? I'm like, oh mate, giving it some action. I'm like, what do you think that lure's doing down there? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, the rod, what you're doing with that rod is not exactly what that lure's doing. And if what you're doing with that rod you think is natural, is not. So let's work on this. So we'll do some like kind of close-up training and just show them how easy you can work that rod tip and really get some lifelike action out of it. Situations where you have some clear water to cast any kind of lure into, and just get a feel for what, when you're moving your rod and reeling and moving your rod and getting that action and seeing what that bait actually does, and be able to start kind of programming your mind as to when, having that muscle memory of what you're doing with that rod and actually what kind of action you're putting on that lure, really starts changing the game on how you can actually present a lure to a fish and and get them to bite it. So
My swimming pool teacher, swimming pool will show you exactly what you're doing to that.
yeah, the swimming pool is a great spotter. I mean, just anywhere you got a little bit of clear water, just to see what, and not pay attention the whole time at the lure, but like really pay attention to what you're doing with the rod. I don't put a lot of action. My buddy Richard Rutland is like,
Yeah.
he's wild. Yeah, it's kind of the Pontchartrain pop, but the funny thing is he does it with braided line, and Chaz does it with monofilament. So
I asked Chaz here the other day, that I've never had the Pontchartrain pop here work like it does over there. It's like it's too much action for our fish. Is that possible?
I don't think so. I think it's just a cadence that he's developed, that he's comfortable with. He's got the rhythm. Richard Rutland's the same way. I've stood side by side with him on the boat, and I feel like I just ran a marathon trying to work the rod like him for 15 minutes, and he's doing it for 6 hours.
Yeah.
The funny part is he's catching and you're catching, and you're sitting side by side.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I find less is more with a lot of these lures. Even a daggum slick lure that if you watch it, it's just, there's little to nothing happening with it. And the first time I looked at one in the water, I was like, this thing is, who in the world is catching fish on this? But, they've been catching fish on mirror lures for forever, and it's just, it has no life to it. Like the 52, MR52, or thing's nothing. It's just a stick floating through the water. So
I got a
I
question.
think everybody's got their confidence lure though too, and we've all got that, depending on what fishing we're doing. We've all got that go-to lure, like Ronnie was talking about great fish magic all the time. I mean, that's obviously his go-to.
yeah.
And sometimes having confidence in that lure can make a difference too.
The heck of a that's probably 80-90% of it.
Yeah.
You talked about using a jig head with the slick. So I've always used it with the beast hook under on the bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you do the twitch and it does the glide and stuff.
Yeah.
So what kind of movement do you do when you put a jig head on it? Because it's really nose down at that point, right?
With the junior or with the big slick?
With either.
So a lot of it I just kind of swim it.
Okay.
Like just keep a steady retrieve, and then I'll throw a little just like that right there in there.
Twitch, yeah.
But it's basically just gliding like this, and it comes up and it goes. It'll come up when you pop it, and then it'll drop back down and then pick back up.
And you using that with a cork, right?
That's just
No, that's just-
putting a
I'm just
jig
talking about
head,
just-
just throwing it out,
just
reeling it
the-
in.
okay.
My Slick Junior, when I throw it, I do the same thing, I'm just reeling it out, pop, pop, and then let it fall for a second, and just keep reeling real slow, and then pop, pop. And
Yeah.
It comes up, usually as it falls, when I usually get the drugs.
Speckled trout tend to like to feed on something that's coming down versus going up away from them. They'll chase it and hit it when it's going up, but 9 times out of 10, when it's going back down is when they're gonna hit it. So that's why I like my cadence where it's flat and then it comes up. But you can do that by starting and stopping your reel. Like you can just reel and then stop, reel and stop, and you get the same action where it's going and then drop as soon as you stop reeling, and then it picks back up and then drops when you stop reeling. And then your handle is on the reel, so as soon as that fish hits, you've got to pick up that little bit of slack and bust them.
Okay.
But I try to use, even in that scenario, I try to use the lightest jig head that I can get away with. But I find that a 1/4 ounce is very universal. It never sinks too fast. Even in fish that are suspended, they'll hit it. They'll hit it on the way down. Like it's not sinking too fast. A 3/8 maybe because it's a straight body lure. 3/8 on a paddle tail. That paddle is generally slowing it down enough to where they'll hit a paddle tail on the way down with a 3/8 ounce jig head.
I guess you can cover a little deeper water too when you have a jig head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so when this lure first came out, we were trying to figure out what swim bait hook to use because it's the junior version of the big one. The big one works so great with the swim bait hook, and I kept messing with it, and I got a little bit of luck on it, and I was like, man, I'm gonna try this thing on a jig head. I had like 4 prototype lures that Joey gave me whenever he was still owning the company. Joey gave me some that were like a hodgepodge, cool beans kind of color, purpley. And I was down to my last one and I put it on a jig head. And I had a customer using it and she caught like a 4-pound trout on it. And then I was like, dang, that was pretty good because we were using shrimp and we put that on there just to try and she catches the biggest trout of the day. The next trip, I'm like, man, I'm starting to guard this thing pretty tight, but curiosity's gaining on me, so I tie it on a guy, just like, hey, let's just throw it out and swim it in and see how that works. He's catching as many fish as the guys that were using other lures that I don't even know what we were throwing, but paddle tails or whatever, and it was being effective. And that particular day, he catches the biggest bull red that anybody's ever caught with me. It's a 45-inch bull red he caught on a daggum Slick Junior on a 1/8 ounce or 1/4 ounce jig head. But anyway, we can go into the redfish now. Red fishing has been kind of interesting to me. So before the trout really started making their appearance in a lot of areas I've been fishing, redfish, and this is a trend that has continued to haunt me every year. I get on a redfish pattern, I stay on the redfish, and I really enjoy that. We kind of using mostly live bait for that, shrimp and finger mullet and pogies, and staying on a good redfish bite. And then you start catching these trout as bycatch, and the next thing you know, the trout move in, and I don't know if they just get more aggressive than the redfish or whatever, but I tend to lose track of my redfish, and that may be a little bit of a Labrador effect where I'm just attracted to the most the most action at the time, and follow those trout and kind of lose focus of the redfish. But anyway, they seem to leave the areas where I was catching them every year, and it takes me a week or two to kind of track them back down where they have been in groups. Generally, you're going to find groups of fish that are going to be in those rat red to fairly over slot redfish, and then you're going to have those that are at the very top of the slot and then into that bull range. And the bull redfish we've been on here lately has been best on a live bait, live pogies, very frisky live pogies has been the deal for us. If that fish slows down at all, if there's a catfish around, the catfish is eating it. I don't care how big the pogie, I mean, if you're using pogies this big, the catfish is still gonna try to eat it and kill it completely. If that bait's really lively, then the bull reds are much more likely to eat it. And we've been catching bull reds and black drum mixed together in those areas where when we're targeting the bull reds. Seems to be that they're wanting to really cruise up and down these bars, and that's something, you know, a lot of times I'll come back to the dock and I tell guys that they want to know what I did, and I'm like, yeah, man, we caught a bunch of bull reds. Man, you can't eat them things. Well, they pull a hell of a lot more drag than any speckled trout ever will. So when I got paying customers on the boat, they remember that drag pull. So when we get on bull reds and big drum and jacks and stuff, that's something that a lot of my folks like to do. Y'all have any questions about bull red fishing? There's also there'll be some opportunities like in that case, yeah, that's one of the many areas. In that case, if you get into a situation where you're casting into schools that you can physically see, do not throw live bait in there. It's totally unnecessary. The best thing I have found, I have done all types of tactics. A bucktail, white bucktail jig is going to catch as many as you could ever imagine. Make sure that the hook is very good quality. I went through periods of trying to buy those things and save a few bucks, and man, the quality of a bucktail is in the hook, and then how long that bucktail will stay on. I have a lot of connections with soft plastic companies, so I use a lot of their products just to give them some love. But the Z-Man on a diesel eye jig head. I don't know if Texas or iStrike has one that's called a diesel eye jig head, and it's a really, really stout hook. You cannot bend that thing out on a redfish. And that one is, you can drive it home and it's gonna stay pinned. It's not gonna straighten out, and you can put a lot of soft plastic lures, burn up a bunch of soft plastics on those jig heads to get the job done. You did ask about the slick lure on a jig head. That is a great lure to use on a diesel eye jig head. The big slick, put it on a diesel eye, throw that and drag it through a school of bull reds. There's often times where they'll hit that better than they will a paddle tail. And I've often thought that the paddle tail, just putting off a lot of vibration, be noticed. Big school of redfish size of this room, like you want to be able to get that thing noticed and get a fish to pick it out of the school. They don't have any trouble. I mean, when something enters their school, somebody's going to eat whatever it is in there.
What size of rod do you use?
Probably the most common is like a 7/6 medium heavy or heavy action rod, something that's good to be able to hold up to about 30 to 50 pound of braid. Yeah. I just find that, and then like a 5,000 size reel. Some 5,000s are really big and some of them are kind of small, but 5,000 size is pretty good. 4,000 will get the job done. If jacks are still around, I would err on that 5,000 to where you don't have to fight them as long. You got a little more torque to be able to get them in. Load it with a minimum 30-pound test. If you're trying to set up a bull red rod, go 30 pound to 50 pound. And then when I rig my leaders, I usually run about a 6 foot stretch of like 40 to 50 pound, whatever my main line is, my braid, I'll usually just have that in a mono leader, and then put like a little piece of kind of like a bite tippet of like 60 or 80 pound, especially if I'm in those schools where we're catching a bunch of them. It'll keep you fishing a lot longer without chafing off. They don't care if there's, I mean, you could use a 100-pound test if you wanted to, but that 50 pound or 40 pound is more than sufficient.
when they get schooled up like that, a couple times earlier this year on Gulf Shore Pier, I was out there and see those schools come by, like I said, bigger than this room. It didn't matter what you threw. It didn't matter.
I will tell you this, that if you have a popping cork and all of a sudden you see a big school like that, don't throw a popping cork in there. Because one of them eats the lure, the other one eats the cork, they go opposite ways, and you lose everything. Experience right here, all right? And it happens out of the blue too, where you're over here trout fishing, and all of a sudden a couple of redfish show up in your trout fishing, and one of them eats the lure, and one of them eats the cork, and you got to retie everything. So that's definitely something that can happen.
Where do you see the trout right now? I know everybody's been talking about coming in. Do you think that they're in now?
Well,
like up in the rivers and stuff.
There's enough in the rivers to occupy just about anybody. Okay. There's still plenty of fish in the bay, but there's a lot of fish in the rivers. Now, if you go kind of chasing birds and chasing slicks and stuff like that, these are high volume type of fishing. Like you're gonna go in there and you might catch 30 or 40 in an area. You may catch, Monday and Tuesday was really phenomenal. Last week I try to keep up with my catches just because it's entertaining to me. I had two guys caught 366 trout in two 6-hour trips. And we caught redfish and white trout and everything else. And that was in the rivers. We cleaned probably a dozen. We were right around their limit each day on trout, but it was kind of work to try to get enough trout to even get close to the limit. But also when you're catching that many, there's a lot of times where you boat flip them and they do the old hit the deck and then hit the other side and flop over, and you're like, man, I think that one was big enough, but he's already gone. But get out there and catch another one. After that particular day, the number of fish all week long, as far as trout, definitely dropped and it was more difficult. It just seemed like anytime you caught one, you might catch three, and then it was just kind of fizzled out a little bit. You're finding a lot, if you are finding speckled trout in the deeper areas still, if you're throwing a grub, you're going to want to try to keep it up near the surface or closer to the surface. Popping cork will work in 18 feet of water if the fish are there. The trout are going to eat it. If you throw a grub down through there, it's more than likely going to be a white trout, that being the case. That's what I've seen over the last probably 5-10 years, that it seems like there's more white trout per volume than speckled trout in a lot of these schools. But there's the speckled trout will generally be on the top. There'll be some redfish generally around that school. A lot of times you just randomly get one. If you wanted to try to be more specific to try to catch a redfish out of those schools, I'd go with like a big paddle tail, like a big 5 or 6 inch paddle tail. You can't, I was in a school of specks the other day and I grabbed one of those rigs that I like to throw at bull reds, and I threw it through a school of trout, and I caught the lure and the jig head combo was that big and the trout was that big. A 1 ounce jig head, and he smoked it. So when they get in these feeding frenzies, they don't let a whole lot get by them that looks like something they could eat. But anyway, that's about all I got as far as where the trends are. Y'all got any other questions? You got any other
What
fish
about
you
night
know
fishing?
about? Night fishing? I don't do it a lot. Mainly hit it around August or right there before school's about to get in, and Jubilees are probably happening, so I kind of try to double up on going on a night where it might Jubilee. And if it doesn't Jubilee, then the fish will bite, and if the fish don't bite, it's probably Jubileeing. So
Okay.
that's generally what I do. I don't do much night fishing outside of that. But I know when I did do it a lot, I always erred on trying to throw a lure that would imitate like a big glassman or those big bay anchovies. Those seem to be like the main thing that they'll feed on all the time. Shrimp imitation, pretty good, but something that looks like one of those bay anchovies. What's that?
The little clip, real slim.
Oh, the little
Yeah,
slick he's talking about?
They work, that thing work real well.
How are you rigging it, Pat?
Actually, I'm just throwing it on.
You just put it on a jig
Just a
head?
hook. Not
Oh.
a jig head, no.
Oh, you're just kind of just letting it glide through the water.
Yeah, just like, not steady, really, like that.
Yeah, doing that.
Drop all load up.
Those are great lure. Those, I have,
Pull a 20 inch shot from my light down the island,
yeah.
about 3 weeks ago.
So, he mentioned the little slick, that's the one in between this one and the big slick. That is a great lure, especially in deep, I mean, it's probably, I find that this one works better more times than not, but that little slick works really well on a jig head, working in deeper water too.
Have you tried the coated roots?
I have a little bit. I am, I mean, they work fine. The couple that I have that, Tanner had given me though, they would rip pretty, seem to be kind of like they'd rip easy. I don't know if it was a batch that maybe a little softer or something he had that was more of on the experimental side, but.
You probably sabotaged.
Anyway, that's about all I've got. Hopefully I gave y'all something to go home with a little bit and chew on.
We appreciate it.
Start out your
Yeah.
next fishing trip.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
I was at Fairhope Pier Sunday, and Fairhope Pier is absolutely stacked with pogies and greenbacks, or whatever you want to call them, about 3 inches long, like more than you could possibly ever want. And just bait everywhere, but couldn't catch trout. I sat out for a couple hours in the morning, nothing. There was live shrimp, like, I started out on top water, and just nothing.
Well, that's something that I did mention at the ACFA meeting. Something that I have noticed is where there's a lot of bait, like where you're just like, golly, man, fish ought to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like they're there. Like, I think there's so much bait that it almost displaces the fish. The spot where we were catching the trout this afternoon, there was like little to no surface activity. There were a few mullet around. The trout were feeding on some shrimp. Shrimp were hopping and hitting the water. But like, you look on the, like, literally look on the fish finder, we were in 8 feet of water. It was a blank screen through the whole time.
Wow.
And then I go to another system and it's like I'm driving 40 miles an hour and the fish finder's blacking out with bait, and I hadn't been catching any fish in there.
That's crazy.
So the areas where there's just a tremendous amount of bait, you almost have to kind of avoid it right now.
I did see Fairhope just put fish lights on their pier, green lights.
Oh yeah?
They only been up for like 2 weeks. So, that's probably my next thing to go over there tonight and see how the
Yeah,
trout
there's
lights.
been a couple of
they might
reports.
stack up.
Specs are on them lights at Fairhope, which the specs have been at Fairhope Pier now for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I've seen some reports on them, so the ones that that don't know Patrick, he's got ugly fishing, and, you can book him. His calendar stays completely full, so good luck with that. Somebody'd have to cancel for you to get a spot, probably.
I got 2 days left this October.
And that's probably the next 90 days too, man.
He's gotta read the fish report too. He does a good fish report.
So one question I always wanted to ask you, and anybody, but you particularly. So if somebody, just say like myself, hired you, what's the chances of getting on a good bite?
What's the chance?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, good bite is really perception on what you consider a good bite.
Yeah.
But it's.
You're not gonna take me to a honey hole because I live here. So do you take any of that when you're taking a climb?
Hey, when you get on the boat, we're going, I'm doing the float plan that I'm gonna do, and it doesn't, I have no consideration as to, is this guy gonna be in my spot tomorrow? Because the chances are, the fish ain't gonna be there tomorrow anyway,
Yeah.
so, no, I mean, my goal and what I'm gonna do is we're going to catch fish. Now, if you want to do something more specific and you wanna go just try to target bigger redfish, or just try to target bigger trout, or sheephead, if you have a specific agenda, those can be more challenging to, it might be, it could be as tough as a 1 or 2 fish day kind of thing. But if we're opportunistic and we're like, well, we set out and start trout fishing, and all of a sudden a big school of redfish shows up, or a school of Spanish mackerel, or school of jacks, or something like that. Like, I try to be prepared for all of those type of things to show up. And as long as you're game for bending a rod and let's catching some fish, then that's what we're gonna do. But like I said, if you have an agenda, then it is a different mindset.
Do you plan the day of, or do you plan the day before?
It's all, it's all in flow.
You just get up in the morning
Check the wind, check where, because you'll have areas where the wind may have blown water out, may have blown water in. So I use, the Arcos. I don't know if y'all use that app at all, but I live by this thing. Let's see, we'll give you the actual name. DISL Arcos app. When you open that thing up, you can see, you can see all the different stations. They got Battleship, Musketeer, Cedar Point, Dolphin Island, Gulf State Park Pier, Katrina Cup, Mare Park, Middle Bay Lighthouse, Bonita Pass, Weeks Bay, and a couple of buoys. So you can gain a lot of actual real-time information with that app. Say for instance, I'm fishing on the causeway. I'm gonna check to see what the predicted tide is gonna be based on kind of what my float plan is gonna look like based on a predictive. But then I'm gonna reference the app and see where the depth is, because it shows you the water depth, and you're gonna be able to see it going down, or it may already starting to be recurving and starting to come back in. But you looked at what the actual, or the predictive was, and the predictive may have showed that it was gonna drop for another 2 hours or something. Things are gonna happen in the environment, especially on weaker tide days, on like a neap tide day. You might see a neap tide day where the chart shows like a 6-inch drop here, and a 1 foot rise, and then an 8-inch drop. Hell, it might fall all day and never check up on the actual conditions. And if you check it and see that, hey man, I've been trying to build a float plan around the tide starting to come back in for this zone to start coming to life, because the tide's coming in at 11 o'clock, and you look at the thing and you're like, man, I've been kind of hanging around this area expecting the tide to start rolling in a little bit. Any little bit will help. But in fact, it just stayed dropping all day. It never came in at all. And that'll happen on weaker tides. In our system, it can take just a little bit of wind that'll affect it. And if you don't know what the actual is doing, I mean, obviously if you have some visual clues that you're fishing near a flat, or you're fishing near something that you've been watching the water level drop or rise, but to look at it on the app, to be able to look at the station that's closest to you, it'll give you a lot of better clues on just on what your next move is. Because I'll make a decision of, I may look at it and say, well, it looks like it's supposed to be bottoming out or peaking at 10 o'clock. And I look at it and it's already peaked and it's already starting to fall. Because that's something, especially when you're around the upper end of the bay or the lower end of the bay, because that tidal flow is so much greater around the rivers and around the mouth of the bay or around the bridge at Dolphin Island, where it may start pulling out faster than what the predicted may have had it hanging in there till noon, and it's already starting to dump at 10, and you can make a decision that this has already changed, and I need to make a decision, I need to make a change on this outgoing tide that I thought was still incoming. So,
It's good stuff.
it's real-time data, like it, and if it's not up to date, like I think if it didn't update within the last 30 minutes, they won't show the information at all, or it'll just show like a hard line where that data was lost, or just the feed quit, so you're not working on bad data at that point, you're just working on no data.
I think I heard you say this to Bush on the last time I heard you on the report, but you don't particularly target flounder. Have you seen a lot of flounder bycatch lately though?
Yeah, actually.
I've seen some monsters caught this weekend.
Yeah, we sat on one point and we caught an 18, a 19, and 20-inch flounder on back casts.
I watched two guys on the seawall next to Cedar Point Sunday. I mean, pulling about 8 of them, and every one was 20-inch. I mean, just slobs. I mean,
and most of what we've been catching them on has been shrimp imitation. I know y'all may see this something in the next couple of fishing trips. You may find an area where the needlefish are really, really abundant. And I don't know if y'all ever thrown a live shrimp into a pack of needlefish. It does not go down to the desirable fish. It is consumed by the needlefish immediately. An artificial shrimp will get down to the thing, and that prawn star, that Z-Man prawn star, we've caught a lot of flounder on that just this past week.
I was trying to see a booty shrimp bass, and I
They're
couldn't
durable.
get past them on Fairhope Pier.
Those things are durable too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've always liked the voodoo shrimp for it being durable, but even needlefish will rip that thing in half and you have to put a new one on there, but that prawn star, and they're actually coming out with two or three new sizes. I think they're getting some smaller ones.
That'll Aztec sage in the needlefish.
If you can get a hook in it.
Yeah, they come
Those are
free
pretty
hooks.
big.
Yeah, they're free hooks.
I didn't bring any of those, I ain't giving up any of those. The fingers do work though. I brought y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's always a great time with Patrick around. So,
What else I got on the agenda?
I just reached out to the mayor. I think, is it next month that we don't have this building?
Yes.
So be on the lookout for, we'll try to send text messages too if we change it. Make sure you signed in tonight or got the information that we have a cell phone number for you where we can, try to make sure everybody gets the word, but make sure.
Check the community.
Did everybody get the, email that the meeting was tonight from SaltStrong?
I got it.
Yeah, so I didn't see it, but sometimes I don't see it, but, yeah, just make sure to pay attention, because we'll have to send out something to let us know if we're having it or we're not having it, or where it will be at, so.
I usually follow this guy. He's got all kinds of information.
By the 1st, we'll have something on the community.
Yeah.
That if they'll check it by the 1st of November, we'll have an announcement out there that's at the top.
Yeah.
So you just gotta check the community at least once a week, and you should probably stay up to date.
So what we'll do, we'll let you know something. So we've been gathering a bunch of handouts, like stuff like Patrick brought tonight. And then, if we don't have next meeting planned, the end of the year, we'll have the awards for most spots, and then we'll have a big raffle for all the stuff that we've been gathering up. Several people have donated some stuff, and, we'll finish out the year, with some great.
What's the redfish we're gonna get? What's the price for redfish?
I don't know yet. I think it's gonna be the plaque. Have y'all seen the plaque? So one guy made us a plaque.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Of the
It's
insignia.
nice, it's really nice.
Talk to me. We're working on something.
Okay, yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, everybody knows Mark Griffin makes
Yeah.
the
If they
Griffin
look for a
rods.
custom rod, I can get you that old redfish rod.
So he makes some beautiful rods, so if you're in the market for a rod,
I got a bunch of them in stock right now, they're already built. Doing, 20% off through November.
get you a code.
Yeah.
We've all,
Check out Facebook and social media, there's a promo code on there.
we've also got a SaltStrong EVA cooler top
Yeah.
that's got the SaltStrong logo in it. So
Yeah,
that'll
we
go.
got several shirts and stuff like
Yeah.
that from different places. And, we'll have some more SaltStrong stuff. So it ought to be a good one. So been just kind of putting stuff back, holding on to the end of the year. So be sure to post everything you can, post pictures, fishing reports. You know, as you know, if you post a picture, you get a pack of lures. So we want to continue doing that.
Y'all post any from your trip?
Bribery. Do it.
You post any from your trip?
Yeah, we did, all three of us did. Bob was with us, Brian, and myself. So, had some good ones. I could not break that 30-incher though. That was killing me. So we have that SaltStrong 30 inch one.
You cut mullet, there's 40 inches everywhere out there.
Yeah.
I can't do live bait, I can't do mullet. If it ain't artificial, that some gun can swim.
The only thing I can say is hang off about a couple hundred yards off the beach, there's those big schools there.